We don't often know the things that are inevitable until they happen. And like a good ending to a book, it feels both really inevitable and really surprising when you get there. Hi, I'm Katia Ariel, and I am author of The Swift Dark Tide. My publisher is Gazebo Books. If I had to describe where my book goes in the bookstore, I would say memoir. People constantly mistake it for fiction because it has kind of slightly fantastical elements to it. But yeah, it's most definitely a true story. And if I had to choose buddies to sit next to on the shelf, I would say maybe Deborah Levy and Carmen Maria Machado. And I mean, not to put myself on a level with these people, but texturally, maybe Maggie Nelson. This book has so many kinds of love in it. It's almost like love is the hobby and the preoccupation of me as a narrator. There's obviously romantic love and erotic love and love that is very bubbly and limerent and heightened. And then there is familial love and the bonds of ancestral love and love that we feel without even being told that we are being loved by presences all around us. There is mother-daughter love, and well, just any mother-child love, really. There is love between people of various genders in various ways to various durations. There is broken love and lost love and dashed love. So yeah, pretty much any which way you can refract it. It was cathartic. Maybe not necessarily cathartic in the true kind of etymology of that word, which is like to cleanse. I'm not sure that I kind of cleaned anything out of my system. It's more that I understood it. I came home to it. I began to understand things like my body, things like what it meant to be and actually a functioning whole adult. All these things, I learned them in the process of writing this book. We don't often know the things that are inevitable until they happen. And like a good ending to a book, it feels both really inevitable and really surprising when you get there. So that's what it's been like for me. So my mother is a visual artist. She paints and she sculpts, and she's still to this day really prolific. She teaches children and adults. She's constantly got a graphite pencil or a brush in her hand. And her house is just a sort of cave of wonders. She was taught her artistic skills by her father, who I write about in the book as well. And he was also this kind of really magical human who created till the minute he took his last breath. He wrote and he painted and he sketched and he made poems. And even at the very end, when he was in a aged care facility, he wrote these little funny, sweet portraits of his fellow residents. What does Odessa signify for me? Well, it's the place of my childhood, so I have a really elemental connection to it. When you say the word, I can smell the sea. I can feel the way the light filters through the leaves of the chestnut trees on the boulevards, and it's not a big city. So it's kind of, yeah, it's quite easy to cover a lot of it on foot. And so, yeah, I feel like I know it in that really local child way where I just ran in the streets and got up to no good and scaled fences and scraped my knee and probably got into a lot of trouble. So to me, it's a very different place to the like heartbreakingly embattled war zone that it is today. Part of the research I did for this was really kind of explore my maternal grandparents' lives through my mother. And she told me a lot about how my grandfather and my grandmother met and how enchanted he was by her. And, there's a lot of enchantment in the book and a lot of then disillusionment. But I think the disillusionment never happened for him with my grandma. I think he just continued to stay enchanted with her, and she showed him what life could be. The same with when I talk about when my mother met my maternal father in art school and the way it came about. It's quite quick in the book. I'd barely touch on it, but she was looking for someone to paint for a life model for her life drawing class. And a friend just kind of really casually said to her, "Oh, there's this gorgeous guy. I'll go fetch him." And she went and got him. And my mum said he was like a chiseled lion. And then, of course, things escalated and spiraled from there and fell apart in their own way. My daughter's name is Delphi. And partly it just sort of came to me. I loved the sound of it, and I loved the kind of brevity and the very soft, sweet poetry of it. I like the way it feels to say it. And then, of course, one of the things the book explores is the way that after I named her Delphi, I went on to find all these correspondences between her and the Greek myths that surround the Oracle of Delphi, who sits at the temple to Apollo, who sat many years ago. But I think what I really didn't anticipate was the way we would choose her middle name, and I talk about that in the book as well, that she had this really difficult, embattled arrival, and I could just feel when I was in hospital waiting to find out if she was going to be okay, that she needed a really strong middle name. And the name that came to me is Miriam, which is a very archetypal biblical Jewish name, and Miriam was Moses' sister, and a lot of people think that it was, that Moses parted the Red Sea and that everybody followed, but actually, apocryphally, Moses parted the Red Sea and everybody kind of freaked. They went, "We don't know how to traverse across this plain that we have wandered for so long." And finally seeing the realization, the actualization of this vast expanse of freedom and movement, it just completely overwhelmed people and they didn't know how to enter. And it was Miriam who put her tambourine up in the air and said, "Follow me." And she went in and she went in and she went in. And actually, yeah, then everybody followed. I wrote the book. I thought it was kind of good enough. I started to sub it out to publishers. I just went the very traditional DIY way. And a bunch of publishers really loved it and then didn't quite know how to classify it or how they might sell it. And so I got a ton of really beautiful rejections from publishers I really admire and would have loved to work with. And then Gazebo, the publisher there, read it and loved it and felt the heart of it and got back to me very quickly and said, "I really want this book." And so off we went. Oh, it's a wonderful thing for a first-time author, because I'm, of course, intend on continuing to write. And so to have that affirmation that I'm kind of on the right track, that I have some idea that what I'm doing is beautiful and so important and, fortifying. It's gorgeous. And of course, the exposure of the book, which, you write these things and they feel so private and so personal, and then suddenly they just belong to the world. And when you have something like the Stella behind you, I think it reaches people and it reaches the right kind of readers. And I want that very much. I want the story to give people joy and consolation and beauty and all the things that I think a lot of writers want. And so having something like that behind me and, to bring it to a greater number of readers is beautiful. What's next is book 2, which I have just finished a draft of, which is with the publisher as we speak. And it is a book about death and death work, and it's a lot more research heavy. It's about the life of a death worker. And it's not about me, which is wonderful, although I am in it, I narrate it. But yes, it's kind of loosely tracking the year that I spent getting to know this extraordinary human who has devoted his life to such precious work. Thanks, Katie. Yeah, that was beautiful.